Pokken Tournament is in the news cycle this week because Tekken producer Katsuhiro Harada had a quick little exchange with a fan asking for a Pokken Tournament sequel. His comment was more or less that he would like to see a Pokken Tournament sequel, but it was largely up to Nintendo and Pokemon Company. So the question remains, why wouldn't Nintendo and Pokemon Company want to greenlight something like this? Why should they? And what would we want to see? Let's talk about it. The original Pokken Tournament was a very interesting game in a lot of different ways, largely because it's something that a lot of people thought was a no-brainer for so long, yet we didn't get any sign of that happening until 2015. And when it finally actually did happen, the first glimpse of that game was only in Japanese and through imports select American arcades. A year later, a full retail release came to the Nintendo Wii U, and a few years after that, due to the failure of the Wii U, a deluxe edition was ported to the Nintendo Switch. You would think that the Wii U version kind of crashed and burned, and that's why they had to sort of rush it out onto the Switch. But all things considered, Pokken Tournament actually did sort of phenomenally on the Wii U, selling over 1 million units and at the time outpacing what was positioned to be the FGC's darling Street Fighter V in sales. The trajectory of Pokken Tournament sales-wise, even just on Wii U, was on par with some of the best-selling fighting game franchises ever. In fact, it would be somewhere in the top 10 best-selling releases in both the Tekken and Street Fighter franchises, and that's just the ones that I took the time to fact-check directly. When combined, the Wii U and Switch numbers put Pokken Tournament as a whole well beyond the 2 million sales mark. It's important to note that while this is something very impressive for a fighting game, this is a Pokemon Company sanctioned product. It has infinite growth potential being a Pokemon property, since on average, Pokemon games basically replenish their fan base with every new release. Sales across this property are consistent not because there are so many returning fans, but because there are always new Pokemon fans growing into the franchise as time goes on. A new Pokken Tournament would be in line with what seems to be the Pokemon Company International's goal for the Pokemon franchise, being that they want Pokemon to be somewhere in everyone's day-to-day if they can. They have the RPG fans with the core games, they have the trading card fans with the Pokemon trading card game, they're aiming for MOBAs, they could partially corner the market on fighting games as well. As far as cons are concerned, I think we can sum that part up as just being that fighting games relative to something like MOBAs or even card games are pretty niche. While that's one major con that I think will weigh a lot on Pokemon Company in trying to decide whether or not they want to go through with publishing another Pokken Tournament game, there's way more pros and potential advantages to making a new game, so I think that they should. The only question that remains then is, how do they go about doing that? The easiest answers to that question lie in the original game. So let's look at all of the things that Pokken Tournament got wrong, then we'll look at what it got right, and whatever other thing I think of as we go along in this video. While a major contributor to what I think is the wasted potential of Pokken Tournament would be the Wii U, I also think the marketing of Pokken Tournament could have been way better the first time around to help them sell a lot more. Now, I can't completely fault them for the lack of marketing. Pokken Tournament did release during what many consider to be the height of the Pokemon franchise, the Pokemon Go craze, which, while on some level was a high tide that raised all boats for the Pokemon franchise, it really only did that for familiar things. Pokken Tournament was something that would be very new for new and old fans alike, so it didn't really benefit from any of the extra attention the Pokemon franchise was getting during this time period. In a normal year, I think Pokemon fans would be a lot more receptive to new things because they don't have the added distraction of lapsed fans joining in on the hobby that they've loved for so long. Go was huge and encouraged lapsed fans to jump into Gen 7. That inherently lessened incentive incentive to jump into Pokken Tournament, even for Pokemon fans that never really left in the first place. And this is something that they don't really have to do anything to solve for. Pokemon Go, while still popular, still generating money, isn't something that's going to detract fans' attention away from a new product in the Pokken Tournament franchise. Now, as long as they make sure that there's a good pace to the Pokken Tournament marketing, there are good ads that make the game look exciting and approachable, I think that we're going to be in a lot better place in that regard. While marketing can go a long way, there's also problems within Pokken Tournament itself that I think limit its potential as a product for the masses, largely due to how good of a fighting game it truly is. By that I mean that Pokken Tournament is a super technical fighting game with a lot of resource management, a lot of tech that you have to learn, different phases in every game that casual fans of Pokemon might not want to learn or be able to learn effectively enough to help the game get off the ground and flourish in the esports realm. One of the early blunders in the life of Pokken Tournament during an Evo run during the early days of the game, where a Braixen player dominated all of the other competitors using what seemed to be pretty lame strategy. This is something that's common in a lot of fighting games, particularly if a game doesn't look cool and fun and interactive to play, especially at a high level. A lot of people will lose interest pretty fast. This happened with Smash 4 with Bayonetta. This is something that a lot of people are talking about may happen now with Smash Ultimate with Min Min, although I disagree, but I digress. And while the player base of Pokken wasn't really fazed by this, the viewers got a bad first impression, and that's not good. In fairness, this didn't exactly kill the game or anything like that, and it would have next to no effect on a sequel proper, but it is something to keep in mind and try to avoid through designing more interactive characters, or at least make the characters that are more campy look like they're interesting. Another common fighting game issue that's true with Pokemon is that the content in the game is pretty lackluster and leaves a lot to be desired, and this could be said regardless of where you are on the totem pole of skill. If you're a new player, there's not a whole lot to help you get better at the game or understand the game on a good enough level to compete with the higher level players. If you're a higher level player that's pushing the meta forward, there's not a lot to keep you wanting to do that other than the intrinsic desire to get good at the game. Laddering in particular is pretty bad in Pokken Tournament, especially since you can cheese it by doing something that's very common and just rage quit. There was no real penalty to doing that. It might have changed in the later days of the Switch version, but as far as I know, when I was still actively playing the game, laddering was terrible in the original Pokken. The story content had hints of Pokemon DNA, with the aim being to conquer all the different leagues, defeating every Pokemon and partner trainer in your wake. But it lacked the fanfare necessary to sort of disguise the boss rush style gameplay. If you think about it, the regular Pokemon campaigns in mainline Pokemon games are just boss rushes. The whole conceit of the game is that you're running through all of these different gym leaders to get to the final boss rush of the Elite Four and Pokemon Champion, and then you win. The difference there, though, is that everything around the Pokemon trainer journey makes it feel more complete than that. Finally, for the cons, something that Falcon brought up in our supporters only Discord is that the original game had a questionable approach to DLC. With all the things that the original got wrong out of the way, let's talk about what it did right. First and foremost, this game looks great. It's one of those spin-off series that the Pokemon fan base sees and they wonder why the mainline games don't look as good. On a similar token, it comes pretty close to realizing the dream that many, including myself, have for Pokemon games to be more interactive on a gameplay level. It's not quite what I would want Pokemon to be as a franchise, but it's a lot more interesting and true to the franchise to me than just picking a selection on a menu. Finally, to this day, Pokken Tournament is pretty well integrated into the Pokemon brand. Whenever Pokemon holds a TPCI sanctioned event, Pokken Tournament is likely to be one of the pillars. If Pokemon TCG is there, Pokemon VGC is there, there's likely to be a competitive Pokken Tournament component to live side by side with those other two competitive pillars. In my mind, if they rectify all of the things that I listed that they got wrong and repeat and improve all of the things they got right, they'd be on the right track. But those aren't the only things that they should do when creating the sequel to this game. I'd argue that the biggest thing that Pokken Tournament 2 needs to accomplish is to win over more Pokemon fans by implementing more of their favorite characters, not just by way of being support. With new releases of Pokken Tournament, whether it be the Wii U version from the arcade version or the Switch version from the Wii U version or DLC that they added later on in the Switch's life cycle, they have done an okay job at expanding the roster to appease more fans. Blastoise, for instance, was a no-brainer, but why no Venusaur? We're missing out on the starter trifecta, and that one I would think is a gimme. Or why no major content updates whenever there's a new generation? You would think that that's pretty free. Most modern day fighting games have some sort of post-release content strategy, whether it be season passes or random drops of new characters to coincide with events in the franchise. Pokemon in particular has very well-defined seasons for content like this. When there's a new generation, drop new Pokemon. When there's a new movie, drop new Pokemon. When there's new DLC in a different game that highlights a new Pokemon, drop new Pokemon. Just imagine that when new Pokemon Snap comes out, they drop Meganium as a DLC fighter. I think that would be pretty dope. Or if retroactively they added Pokemon from the Galar region, and when Gen 9 comes out, they add Pokemon from that region. I think it's completely unreasonable to expect that every Pokemon should be in the game, but a lot more Pokemon should, and I think could be in the game if there was a solid content release strategy for this game. It could be a catch-22 situation where the budget just isn't there. This game, again, did do pretty well for a fighting game, but fighting games don't have the type of life cycle that a Pokemon fighting game could have at its peak. Or what about implementing more principles from the Pokemon world? Many of you know how much I love Super Smash Bros. A lot of you may not know that that love is mostly informed by how well Pokemon Trainer is implemented into the game. That character oozes the Pokemon franchise. The concept of having a Pokemon Trainer with 3 different Pokemon from 3 different evolutionary lines in different stages of their development and different levels of power to come with that, using those different attributes to balance out each other's strengths and weaknesses, is as Pokemon as you can get. Pokken Tournament sort of does a version of this by using support Pokemon and having the whole thing where your trainer character kind of controls your Pokemon but doesn't really control your Pokemon, is a step in that direction, but why not go all out? Why is Pokken Tournament not more like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm, where it's basically a tag team battle? You have those assists, but there's also an option to just straight up switch to different characters. Sure, this is another thing that will require more development and more characters to be added to the game in a more meaningful way, all having fully fleshed out movesets on some level, but I think that that's something that could pay off in dividends if they do what we've been theorizing for a while and just reusing these assets in other Pokemon games, and in the similar way that Nintendo likes to do, and in a way Pokemon Company likes to do when reusing assets that apply across their different products and releases. And those are all my thoughts on a possible Pokken Tournament sequel and what I would like to see come of a game like that if it were to come to pass. I don't expect to see it anytime soon if the Tekken producer is only now talking about how much he would like to do it, although I mean developers aren't exactly always super upfront about what they're really working on, but it could be a cool surprise for the 30th Pokemon anniversary. What do you think? Are you a fan of the original Pokken Tournament? If not, why not? And what could they do to change the formula to bring you in for the sequel? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you click the like button and share it with a friend that also likes Pokemon on any level, because I'm going to be talking about Pokemon a lot this year since it's the 25th anniversary. Or any friend that just likes Nintendo in general, because we post new Nintendo videos here every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and I stream mostly Nintendo games every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time over on our Twitch account. Also, we have a Nintendo podcast that posts every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check out all of that and more. You can follow me on Twitter. All of that is in the description and or on the screen. Okay, that's it for me. See you next week.